Welcome back to Sprueverse, my scale model universe, people of Earth. This is a brand new build, and this one is you know, well, it's you got to go back a few months because I and my friends Wayne and Lou, who I'm sure all of you know, were going to make this kit that I'm going to build today, the Sprueverse Challenge, back in June. And we got to talking amongst each other, and we decided to go in another direction. So we are definitely building another challenge kit soon. But in the meantime, the Talos got put on the shelf. Now I know Wayne has printed a Talos that he's working on, and I know that the great Lou has built this kit. And so that was the impetus for me pulling it off the shelf and going, you know what? I think we got to close the circle here. I think I need to build this. I'm going to build it. I mean, because in a few days, I'm going to be jumping on a plane with Lou, and we're heading to the UK. Very excited. So I'm trying to get some content put together before we leave, because I'm going to be gone for about 3 weeks, and I know that's not good when for my soul either that I'm not building. So here we are. Okay, so this is it. This is the Talos. Okay, and this is from a company called Star Ace, and it's a 12-inch soft vinyl kit. That's what it says. It says 12-inch soft vinyl kit. Now, I don't remember, but this was not cheap. These are not easy, these are not cheap kits. And I don't do a lot of soft vinyl, but it was interesting because when I opened the box, I realized that it really is not soft vinyl. It's hard. It's not the stuff of the old Horizon kits. Those old dinosaur kits where you had to warm them up in boiling water and then cut off the excess flashing. No, this is pretty good. And I realized that also, there's not a lot of work you have to do with getting these seams together. So that's gonna be relatively easy too. There's a little bit of cleanup to do, but this is really going to go together quite well. And the detail on these are really good. Look at this, nice crisp details, and very well constructed. Lots of texture, so lots of fun. So the key here is trying to make these seams go away, get it all blended. And so we're going to be doing that. There's some actual resin parts here that need to be cleaned up. The hands are actually cast resin. Here's a hand. Nice detail. Especially these fingernails, they're quite pronounced, and this is obviously the sword handle part, and it all goes together quite well. And then of course the boat itself. Here's the boat, lots of detail, and you get some oars, and then you get a clear piece. Here's the clear piece. This is supposed to be the splash. Now, this moment comes from this scene. So he's about to pick the boat up out of the water. He's standing on what is essentially the only way in and out of this inlet of water, and he is trying to wreck this boat. Now, curiously, and Lou actually pointed this out on his build, which is on this boat there are 4 holes for rigging, but there's no mention of them in the instructions. But if you look really carefully, here you can see that there is rigging, in fact, on the mast. So I thought to myself, I thought, why don't we see if we could just add a little bit of rigging to this, not terribly difficult, and I think it would, just finish off this boat a little bit. So that's it. That's the extent of this kit. Very very simple. So what I'm going to do now is, because it's all about the painting and putting it on its base, I'm going to put this thing together, clean everything up, and then we'll get to the painting part. And it's a quick build in a lot of ways, but it should be a lot of fun. Well, before we come back, let me show you these instructions quickly, because it's always fun to look at them. This is what you get. Not very complicated. And as Lou said, if you can't follow these instructions, you need to put the model down and get yourself and pick up a book. So, in my comment on his build, I did say, nice build, I'm going to pick up a book. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Come back in just a second when I put this thing together. We'll take a look at it. Stick around. It's great to have you with it. Well, it went together relatively simply. No super issues. I used CA gel. It seems to like that quite a bit. I have some seams I'm going to have to deal with. I'm going to use a little bit of Infinite's epoxy putty on that. I know you could also use JB Weld, but the epoxy putty will set up quite quickly and it'll allow me to keep going. You could also use Solarez. I saw Lou use that on his very effectively. But I think I'm going to use the epoxy putty because I can do a little more sculpting. And for whatever reason, I had a little gappage in the back of mine here that you can see that right here that is quite severe, and I've got a little bit in the arm here, but we'll clean that up with a little bit of epoxy putty, and that will disappear, no problem at all. So it all went together quite well. The resin pieces are interesting. The boat itself is on a clear piece. That's the splash, and we are going to put this into a little bit of a diorama, and I'm going to try and make it look like this. Of course, obviously the boat won't be moving, and we'll get a little bit of detail on a little bit of rigging here. We'll put on there just because we can. I put an oar in just so you could see the oars are in. There's lots of oars, and they'll go on both sides. And so I'll do a little bit of detail work on that, but I'm not gonna go crazy. So right now, what I've got to do is get these seams dealt with. So we'll do that right now, and then we'll get some adhesion promoter on this, and then give it a coat of paint just to see what it looks like all uniform. So that's what we'll do now. Okay, I wanted to jump in here and tell you that I'm not using epoxy putty. I'm going to be using my light curing epoxy putty, and that's what I'm doing here. And what I love about the light curing epoxy putty is that it's not going to go off until you hit it with that light. So I've got plenty of time to sort of get it in the cracks here and play with it. And you want to try and just kind of just play with it, push it in, and it's going to do a really nice job here. I mean, this is probably one of the best uses of the epoxy putty. Now what I do is, when I get it in like that, just I'm going to run my finger over it just to get a smooth surface like that. And then what I'm going to do is hit it with my UV light. It only takes a few seconds. I can see it going off now because it starts to get darker. kill that. Perfect. Rock hard. It's beautiful. And that seam has really come together nicely. So it's a great use of the epoxy putty light curing. Now I'm sure there are other brands other than Frozen. I just happen to have a can of the Frozen on my desk, and I swear by it. So I'm going to continue working on these seams. Then we're going to come back and look at this with a coat of paint on it. All right, back to regular scheduled programming. Okay, I just wanted to show you the result of this before we went on to primer. Just putting the lid back on my putty, getting it out of the way, because it's good. I mean, it's really good. I'm going to show you close up here so that you can see. Those seams are really well done, and you know, it's solid. It's absolutely solid. So it's going to bend beautifully. I mean, you can hardly tell here, and there's no sanding involved. Although, you know, I can hit these with a little bit of a sponge because I can get in the contours. But just in case there is anything, but I assure you there isn't. And so I'm really happy with that. Yeah. So light curing epoxy putty is a great thing for this kind of work, especially with this vinyl work. I mean, it just absolutely loves it. Okay, so let me get a base coat on this, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, so her base coat is on. She's had a couple of coats of the bronze, the X33, which feels like it's the right color. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just sort of figuring out how it sits on this base, because I need to glue some things down and let those dry while I go back to the patinating. So I'm trying to sort of get this moment, and it's quite a calm sea, and there doesn't appear to be an awful lot of complication to the terrain. There's no vegetation, so it shouldn't be that difficult. So that's the plan. I have done a little bit of detailing on the boat itself. So what I'll do is I'll just carefully take this off for a second and show you. What I did was I drilled out the railings, because in the film they're open, they're not closed, and there was a lot of sprue in there. So I just simply took my little Proxon drill with some micro drills, and I cleaned that up. And it looks pretty good, and I think it'll make a difference. And I am going to put, as I said, a little bit of rigging on this. And what I'm also planning on doing is I'm planning on just putting this back. I'm planning on letting this splash extend out over the base itself. This will just be sort of black. I'm going to make this pedestal black. This will be my ocean, which I'm going to just seal this and get some water effects on this and blend this into the splash. And I'll hit the splash with a little bit of my Tamiya clear. And I'm just going to keep it all very, very simple and very contained, because that's about, you know, all I really want to do. But as you know, I can't help myself sometimes, and so I have a gadget, which, you know, we all have these. This particular one is called it's called Cool Top. I think it's called Cool Top. Take a look. That's the name on the handle. or cool lop. Might be cool lop. I don't know. I found this on Amazon, under $20. But what I love about it is it has the on and off button, so you don't kill yourself. I've seen a lot of guys make their own of these. I kid you not. Coat hangers and wires that are a battery, and all you're doing is setting a little bit of a heating element, usually from a soldering iron or something, is sending some heat to this wire, and what it does is it allows you to cut through foam. And I've got this insulation foam that I picked up at my local hardware store, but you can get this at Hobby Shop in small blocks. The problem with the big box store panels, they're so big, it's like you end up with more material than you actually need. But this stuff is great fun. And just to sort of demonstrate the genius of this, I'm gonna show you what we do. Is I turn on my wand, and you can see it heat up. The little band across there will start to glow red. Now you probably can't see that on camera, but I can. I can see that it is now glowing red, which tells me that it's ready to go. And I've got these little elements, and all I'm doing with them now is just carving them, right? And look at that. How much fun is that? Now you could do that with a knife. But why when you can do it with a little wand? And it makes it so much easier to play with. Now, I know all of you are going, Phil, come out of the Dark Ages. We've been using these things for years. Well, I know you have. But, this is, it's just part of my pleasure of building my model, and I'm just showing you what I'm using. So that's it. It's not tips and tricks in that sort of sense of the word. I guarantee you on this channel you will receive marginal modeling advice, but we're going to have a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm going to continue to play with this, carve it, and get it all situated. I'm going to glue it up with some PVA glue, let it set, and then we can start. I can start sort of getting some plaster on there to start getting a finish coat for the rock, and then we'll come back in the next segment. I'm gonna do a little patinating. Okay, patinating time. While my base is drying, I'm going to do a little patinating. Now, this is a technique that is tried and true, and there are many different color variations you can play with. I've tried some up to long oils, and that works too, and I might do just a little bit of that just to hit some of the highlights as I go, because it's oil paints are very forgiving, and they're an amazing tool to have once you get comfortable with them. But this is just a water-based airbrush-ready color called Chroma Air, and it's a company out of, I believe they're out of Florida. It's a very interesting paint. It dries very, very hard, and for certain applications it's absolutely brilliant. For this, I think it's perfect, but you could use craft paints as well. So let me show you what this looks like on, and it's getting in all the crevices, and it's doing exactly what it should do. And you can, as long as you stay in a small area, you've got some drying time, and you can put this on, and you can make it as thick or as thin as you like. What I really like about it is it gives you a wonderful staining quality. So you don't need much, and you keep it in a very small area, and you brush it on like this, and you want to take a little rag, and I'm just using paper towels really, and you can wipe it off. And you get a bit of a film on it, but don't worry about that, because when it dries, you can hit it with a satin gloss. You can even, if you really don't like it 1000%, you can even hit it with a little bit of water, and you can even take even more off. And but I like what that's doing. It's creating a wonderful overall effect, and it's going to get in all the nooks and crannies. And you don't need a lot, but as long as you stay within your within your sort of comfort zone in terms of how much you're putting on and taking off, you'll be fine. And do not try to do the whole thing at once, because the net result of that is going to be that some of it will dry too fast for you, because this dries very quickly, and you won't get the effect that you're looking for. It just will not work. So that is, let me turn it over so you can see it. So that's what we're going for, and we'll do the overall. We'll sort of do the overall thing now. I mean, I start at the very bottom. Some people start at the very top. Some people like to do the head first. I like to start on the legs, and I don't know why, but it dries. It'll dry first, and then you can, you've got something you can hold on to. But so I just take it and hit it, and it's getting in all the cracks like a wash, like it should, and it's staying there. And that's going to dry, and we can tone it down with some other colors and stuff like that. So don't worry about it. If you feel like it's too much, or you don't like the effect, then don't worry about it. It'll come off. And as I said, you do not need a lot. And it is a kind of dry brushing technique, I suppose. You could argue that it's a dry brushing technique, but it's just doing wonders on this model, and it's adding that depth that you really need. So we'll go up the shin here in front, like that. And I'm finding that you don't need to dip your brush back in the paint that often, and that helps too keep it controlled in terms of how much is going on. You do want to try and make sure that you've gone through every area. You don't want patches that aren't covered. You want to cover the whole model so that you get a good blend. And then, as I said, you can always go back. You can come back and you can pull it back. So don't worry about that. It's just paint. But for a starting position, I think that's it's doing a real. It's really adding a depth to this. So I'm pretty happy with that. So that's the technique that I'm using to create some patina on this. Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. I'm gonna do the whole model. You don't need to watch me for the next half an hour, 45 minutes, but it's gonna be pretty awesome. So I will get the patina coat on here, and then maybe we'll come back and talk about picking up some oils for some highlights and things like that. So let's take a look at this when the whole model has been patinaed. So Talos has a really nice base of patina, and it looks kind of weird in this bright light, but I assure you it's looking as it should. But there's something that I think adds a little bit more dimension to it, and that is I'm using some Abdelong 501 oil paint. I do love it, and I think that it's a great way to add some dimension to this, and I'll show you what I mean. I did a little bit here on the back just to show you what you can do, but I think it adds another layer of texture to it. So you just simply dab it on. Now you don't you don't put it everywhere. You just put it in a few places, just to pick up some highlights, and then you sort of rub that, and you get this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful oxidation look to it. And it really makes a difference, and it really pops. And I think you'll agree that you get all this lovely filigree look to it. So that's something that I'm doing, but I'm not going to be doing it, throughout the whole model. You don't want to do the whole thing because you'll kill the effect. It just won't work. But it will work in places, like especially around the face and the sword and that sort of a thing. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do a little more filigree work on this, and then when we in the next segment, I'll probably move on to the little boat. I'll get a base coat of brown on all of that, and then we'll start picking out some of those details, and then we can go back to the base. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, if you're into aging things, and you can just go to town with this. Okay, so let me carry on with my filigree work, and then we'll come back, and I'll focus on the boat. Okay, I'm working on the boat itself. I'm not going too crazy on it, but I have put some detail on it. I hit this with some medium brown, and then I streaked it with some orange rust to give it that wood effect, and that's worked out quite well. So that's what I've been doing, and I like the shadows it's creating. The boat hangs with this completely obscured, so you're not going to get a lot out of it, but it's worth it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on the sail itself. I'm going to get that painted up, and I'm choosing the rust again because with the brown I feel like it's picking up a nice amount of color, and it's just sort of hitting the highlights really, so that it feels like it's fabric. The color saturation in all of the film references make it really hard to tell what's what, at least for me. So I feel like this is one of those situations where you can I feel like you can take your own creative license here and do whatever it is you'd like to do. So I'm going to hit this with this, and then what I'll do is I'll do a little dry brush with the white. I'll just let this dry out, and then I might do a little bit of dry brushing on this little, I think it's supposed to be like a crow's nest up there, a little lookout. I suppose you could have drilled that out if you wanted to be super, but I'm not going that crazy. And then the oars themselves, I've got a little coat of paint on them, but I'm going to glue them into the boat, and then I'll just pick them out and clean them at that point. Okay, so I've got that working, which is good. And I need to get some deck 10 on this too, and that's sort of for the horn itself. And so I'm not worried about colors mixing, because that's a good thing. The more color you have, the better off you are. I always feel in these situations when you're doing painting like this, you don't want one color. You want it to be many colors, because if you look at anything in nature, it's not one color, it's many colors. Even things that are supposed to be one color can appear to be a different color in the light. So that's what I'm doing, and the most of this is obscured by his hand anyway, this horn, but it appears to me to be white. So that's what we're doing here. So that's looking pretty good. And then I'll give that one more coat, and then I'm going to work on the head. I mean, I'm not going to do too much work, but it needs some detail. So I'm going to do that in the white as well. As soon as I've just got that line cleaned up there. There we go. Okay, that's better. That makes more sense. Just want it to be even. Like that, and then we can hit the angel or the cherub. Sorry about my head. Sometimes I'm not aware of where I am, which is most days. Okay. There is a interesting filigree line that appears on the other end, which is like a black zigzag. And I noticed in Lou's version of this, which he just completed, he managed to brilliantly add that. And then, of course, said, "Don't ask me how." Don't ask me how I got it done, which is probably true, because it takes an incredibly, steady hand, and I don't know if I have that incredibly steady hand. And then I think I'm going to do the battle shields. I'm going to hit those. I think I'm going to hit those with black, just to give it a little bit of a different contrast. So it's not all so monotone here. Okay, isn't it lovely? I keep my mouth shut while I'm working because I can't chew gum and do this at the same time, as it were. So you guys get a break from my mouth. There we go. And then I'll dry brush that face in just a minute. Of course, you can't see a bloody thing when I'm not aware of where I am. And we're just gonna give this line, this keel line, just make it cleaner. There we go. And this is an off-white that I'm using there. So that looks nice. Maybe I might put a little bit of black on the ends of these, what I think are like bolts that are holding it together. And then we've got these little splays here, and I've got another color for that. I've got pale sand for the next step, which is, well, we're going to do that right now. Is I'm going to do a little bit of dry brushing. So let me get that, and let me get a dry brush out of my kit here. There, this one should work. And let me get my pale sand. Give this a little shake. And so when you dry brush, you get your brush nice and wet, like that. Make sure it's in the brush, it soaks it up quite a bit, and then take most of it off. And see what you're left with, and we'll just dry brush these planks on the inside here. We'll give that a little bit of highlight, like that, and then we'll hit these planks here. Just get some And we'll just hit these little banisters with a little bit of, just a little bit of color. Okay, I'm really happy with that. That's really looking good. Let me just do a slightly better job here at in these corners. What I like about that is you know, that's the way it's going to look. So you get this, the light will hit it, and I think we'll be fine. And then I think I have enough paint here just to pick up the edges on the outside here. Oh, that's good. That's really good. That worked out well. And let me try to dab this other side. That is one of the nice things about when you use the Vallejos for dry brushing is they dry so fast that you do get a nice, there. Yeah, that worked out really well. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, of course I've got a fingerprint. Well, never fear. Just take a little, whoops, just take a little bit of water and rub it right out. Just like that. Okay, so that's coming along. I'm going to continue to do a little more dry brushing. I'm going to get the oars in. Oh, I hit the splash with a little bit of the blue. So I just got to make sure that when I sit that in, I can, you know, I'll get some whites on it as well once I blend in all the water, and so it looks uniform. Because right now it's a little too stark, but it'll be fine. Really happy with this. I'm going to get a little bit of the, I think I'm going to not use black. I think I'm actually going to use this olive drab here, because I think that'll be a lot more fun. And I'm probably just, well, with a toothpick, see what I can get here. Oh yeah, that works out really well, because you can see here with the dry brush and then this little dot in the center, you get the illusion of, you get that illusion of a of that shield. So I like that. Okay, good fun. So I'm gonna continue sort of chipping away at this little beast. Do a little more dry brushing on the sail. Get that in. Get the oars in, and that should complete everything for the kit itself. And then we'll come back and we'll do a little work on the base, just because I'm trying harder to do a little more with bases. Okay, so let me clean up this mess and then we'll work on the base. Back on the base, I've chosen to go with grays for the rocks. Now that my plaster is dried, this is just powdered plaster of Paris with water that's that sets up in about 15 minutes. It's dry in about an hour. And there's all kinds of this stuff available on the market. Mostly it's for scenic railways, really, but it's great for dioramas, and it's great to have in your pocket here. So what I do is I'm just going to go with the darkest tone first. I'm going to take this all the way into the water, and then I'll hit the water with the blues, and then I'll put water effects on that just to give it that kind of look. But I'm going to just drop these into the water here just a little bit, and then the rest will be ocean. And I will dry brush on here some grays so that this looks very rockish, but you got to start with a base. So I always start with my darkest colors and then I get lighter and lighter. At least you don't have to really, but I think it's better if you do. You don't need to be perfect here, you just need to get good coverage on it. I'm using acrylic paints, so they'll dry very quick. If you wanted to be cheap and cheerful, it's good to have some craft paints in your kit. They're incredibly inexpensive and you can actually airbrush them quite well. There's lots of tutorials online about using craft paints to put in your airbrush, and it does work. You can thin them. You just gotta be very, very lucky and smart about how you thin them. You know, I mean, I've seen people thin this stuff with everything from Windex to all kinds of other things, but let's see, I don't know how I got that on my water, but I did. That's okay. Now, the only reason why I'm sort of rushing here is because I like to use these paints a little wet, because I find if you're doing rocks or you're doing a mix of things, it's fun to be able to do that. Excuse me. Oh, I'm sneezing crazy here. Sorry, I turned the mic off so you didn't have to hear me having a sneezing fit. I had a massive sneezing fit. If any of you care. Most of you though, no, don't care. I had a comment the other day, and I don't really talk about comments because I'm not trying to out anybody, and I appreciate good and bad comments. But if you're going to go to the trouble to tell me that I talk too much, I appreciate that. I probably do. But you don't have to be vitriolic about it. You don't have to be nasty. Nobody has to be nasty. But anyway, I've seen a lot of YouTubers quit because of vitriol. They just don't want the rudeness. Some people turn off comments. I won't ever do that. But it isn't fun to have vitriol, but we all get it. And I'm a big boy. And I do appreciate comments, good and bad. I don't know why this conversation is coming up, but you know, when you're painting like this on camera, it turns into a bit of a therapy session. At least it does for me. Yeah. But anyway, you get the idea. You can see what I'm doing, and then I'm going to put my blue in the center here. And that'll look really cool. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep painting, and I'll come back when I'm putting on the water effects, and we'll see that going down. And while we're here, I can show you my boat. Here's my boat. I want to be very careful. There she is, and I put rigging on her. I'm super happy with that. I think she turned out really, really well. Oops. Really well. So I'm happy with that. And she's ready to go. She's all detailed out. Okay, I'm going to keep painting, and then we'll come back and we'll look at water effects. Why not? Well, I was going to put realistic water from Woodland Scenics on this. Doesn't need it. In my opinion, it really doesn't need it. I would do it if I thought it added some value to this model, but I just don't think it does. What I did end up doing was using paint, and I added some of the Rust-Oleum dimensional craft paste, which is, you could use caulking. I don't know. There's definitely other things you could use, but I love this stuff. Comes in small jars. I don't need big tubes of something, or big, even the smaller tubes. I just don't need it in the shop. So I'm happy to have this. Talos is a fun build. It's got lots of fun details. I'm loving the drama of this. I think I captured it quite beautifully. The ship, I added some rigging to it, and I think you can see here I also added I drilled out the rail in the center, so that's all clean. And I think he's looking perfectly patinaed. I don't have any complaints about this. I'm very happy with the way it finished, and I also really think I captured that moment quite well. It's on a simple base, and it took about 3 days to complete. And that's only because I left some drying time and wanted it to obviously do that while I was patinaing it and getting it all put together. Talos is a really wonderful piece of memorabilia to have from a wonderful film. If you're a Ray Harryhausen film fan like I am, it's great to have something like this in your collection. It's not a cheap kit, but it comes in at over $100. But it's definitely worth having in the collection, in my opinion. So there you go, my Talos. So the Taloses are all done. I know one was done over at Aztec Dummy. Lou's finished his. Wayne has one as well, and I've done mine. So there you go. We are finished with Talos. It is out of the bloodstream, but really a lot of fun. I encourage you to grab this kit and paint it and put it in a scene that you'd like to see it in. So there you go. One more build done. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe. It means an awful lot to me. Drop me a line. I'm Spruverse@gmail, or follow my In the Weeds posts on Instagram, where I leave all of my photos of what's on the bench and what I'm up to. Until next time, I wish all of you, please, be safe, be well, build something, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.